Hello and welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA and the first webinar of your orientation, Countdown to VISTA Service. Your VISTA service is a year-long commitment, and this time before you start is meant to provide you with the opportunity to learn about service and your benefits, as well as to ensure that this is the right choice for you. My name is Andy King, and I'm joined by
Eric Powell.
We'll be your hosts today from VISTA headquarters in Washington, D.C. You'll also see our AmeriCorps VISTA colleagues Khadijah Carr, Chris Hawks, and Kaylee Ramovich, as well as our partners at LSI, most notably Kim Adams and Aaron Galogli. They're all here to support you during today's presentation. You'll see them in both the chat and the Q&A to support you.
And I want to add my welcome as well in joining the great AmeriCorps VISTA program, having served as a VISTA and a VISTA leader several years ago. Great experience in my life, and we, of course, on behalf of the entire VISTA program and all of the VISTA and VISTA Leader alumni out there, want you to also have a very successful and enjoyable year. So I'm very excited to welcome you and get you prepared for your VISTA service. So here are the session objectives for today. We want to make sure that we can show you the support that's available to you this year, explain what to do in order to enter VISTA service, things that you'll need to know to do on your first day of service, describe the benefits of VISTA service, the conditions of VISTA service, and have some time to take some questions and answers.
All right, so let's start by looking at two important resources for you during your year of VISTA service. So we'll start by looking at the websites that will support you. My AmeriCorps and the VISTA Campus. My AmeriCorps, which is found at my.americorps.gov, is where you applied to your AmeriCorps position, and it's where you complete your direct deposit and the other onboarding forms. It's also where you can access your VISTA assignment description. It's where in a few weeks you'll be able to access your living allowance statements, you can request certain benefits, and print a letter that verifies you as an actively serving VISTA member. The VISTA Campus, which is at vistacampus.gov, is where you complete your onboarding coursework. It also has learning resources for your entire year. Additionally, the VISTA Campus is where you can find the VISTA Member Handbook, which is a great source of information now and throughout your year of service. You can also connect with other VISTA members through the VISTA Campus discussion forums. Now, throughout your year, you will likely want and maybe at times need some support. The VISTA program involves a lot of different layers that help support the work that VISTA members are doing, as well as supporting them, the VISTA members. So first off is your VISTA supervisor. Your supervisor is there to support you in your day-to-day tasks. It's important to keep your supervisor up to date with any changes in your plans. So if your plans change and maybe you cannot relocate at this time, or a particular personal circumstance prevents you from serving with VISTA, then please let your supervisor know, and then as well reply to the emails that I've sent you, Andy King, so that both your supervisor and I will know, we here at headquarters will know that your plans have changed and you're not going to be able to start VISTA next week. The next layer of support is your CNCS state office. Your state office is the Corporation for National and Community Service office that oversees your VISTA project. They can be a great resource for you if you have any concerns about the VISTA project where you're serving, or if there's a question that comes up that your supervisor can't answer. The state office can be easily reached by email using the state abbreviation and then at cns.gov. So for example, if you are in Texas, Texas would be tx@cns.gov. And finally, you're also supported by us here at VISTA headquarters, and that includes the VISTA training unit and the VISTA Member Support Unit, among other departments. The VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU, is a helpful resource for questions related to your benefits. There's an AmeriCorps VISTA Resources and Contact Sheet that you can download from the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus. We suggest you download it and keep it where you can find it. And you can manage your own support by taking time to navigate the VISTA campus and My AmeriCorps so that you're familiar with them and that you know where to go to find those resources. And when in doubt, contact the VISTA Member Support Unit through the National Service Hotline.
So now, let's talk about the steps that need to be completed before your first day of service. You received an email that pointed you to the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus. If you have not yet checked it out, please do so. I am going to highlight what is included there and what needs to be completed by your first day of service. As you probably know, one of the requirements to complete is your onboarding forms. For example, your direct deposit, your federal tax withholding or W-4, designation of beneficiary, and your end of service benefit selection. All of these forms are located in your my.americorps.gov account and must be completed ASAP. These forms are legally required, and again, we cannot pay you or offer you benefits until they are complete. There are special provisions that apply to some of these benefits once you start service, so be sure to read all the information. We will review a few of these briefly later on in the presentation. In addition to the onboarding forms, you are required to complete courses and tutorials online. These courses are located on the Starting VISTA page of vistacampus.gov and must also be completed ASAP. These courses provide you the necessary information to make an informed decision to serve. A special note is that the Terms and Conditions course is linked to your my.americorps.gov account so that you can certify your acceptance there. Remember that you must accept the Terms and Conditions of Service to enter service as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. The forms ensure you receive your living allowance and receive the benefits you are entitled to, and the courses will help guide you in your first few weeks as a VISTA. These must be completed before you show up at your VISTA service site.
All right, so let's talk about that first day of service. We expect that you will be at your VISTA project site, that is the office where you'll be serving, on your first day of service, which is next Tuesday, a week from today, November 13th. And remember that as a VISTA member, you will serve for a full year, a 365-day term. Those of you who are relocating to serve must be moved into your new location by next Tuesday. If for some reason you're unable to show up on this date, or if you're not sure where to go, be sure to contact your VISTA supervisor immediately. And then you can let me know by email, again, Andy King, aking@cns.gov, if something changes and you're not going to be joining us in VISTA next week. Now, as a VISTA member, you'll be serving in a professional work environment, and you'll want to set yourself up for success. I suggest that you confirm your plans with your VISTA supervisor if you haven't been in contact for a while, or, again, if you're unsure of the address where you need to report or what time you're going to report on Tuesday. You might also want to check things like, what's the dress code like? What's the parking situation if you're going to drive? Or any other special considerations such as commute time or, traffic in the area, those kinds of things. And if there's anything in particular that you need to bring with you, particular kinds of identification, do you need to bring a social security card or fill out any other paperwork, those kinds of things for your first day. And if you're unable to get in contact with your supervisor, then that would be a good time to reach out to your CNCS state office. Now, I need to mention that the VISTA program is not responsible for securing you housing. However, if you're in need of housing, you should speak, first of all, with your VISTA supervisor, as they're likely to know the area, and they may be able to advise you on some possible housing options. You may also search the discussion forums on the VISTA campus to see how other VISTA members have been able to connect with each other and see what resources have been beneficial for them. You might take advantage of other housing options, but also be aware to avoid scams. Especially if you're doing something remotely and online, please beware. And there's lots of good information out there available about how to avoid online scams. All right, so a little bit more about your first day, again, next Tuesday. So along with your new supervisor support, VISTA headquarters is going to present another webinar, and that one's called Launching Your VISTA Service. It'll be at the same time as this webinar, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, noon Pacific, and in Hawaii I think it's 10 a.m. Yeah, I believe it's at 10 a.m. in Hawaii. So similar to this webinar, you'll receive an email from Adobe Connect with a link and details for joining that session. In that webinar, we're going to highlight certain points and decisions that you must make related to your benefits and the terms of service. To be ready for that webinar, we want to make sure that you have read and reviewed the information on the benefits page of the VISTA campus so that you fully understand your benefits. We're not going to go through everything next week. We're going to hit some highlights, and then we're going to point out some decision points that you'll need to make. Also, on next Tuesday's webinar, we're going to administer the oath of service to you. You'll get more details next week about that. And also, on your first day of service, your supervisor will give you a fingerprint kit as well as some instructions that outline the VISTA background check process. Please note that you'll need to use the specific fingerprint cards that are in the kit provided, and you'll have 30 days to get fingerprinted, 30 days from your first day of service. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail next week. So that's looking ahead.
Thanks, Andy. You're about to join VISTA, a federal program that started back in 1965 as Volunteers in Service to America. Almost 3 decades later, VISTA became part of the AmeriCorps family of programs in 1994 under the federal agency of the Corporation for National and Community Service, also known as CNCS. As a VISTA member, you are making a 1-year, 365-day, full-time commitment to strengthen and support your community. And as a VISTA member, you will strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs. You will work on projects with staff and volunteers to build capacity rather than providing direct service to people in need. At the heart of VISTA is your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD. It tells you the overarching goals of your project, explains the objectives that you're working towards during your year of service, and lays out the specific activities that you will do in order to accomplish the objectives. All VISTA members should have a VISTA Assignment Description. If you do not have yours, or if you have not seen it, you can download a copy from it from your my.americorps.gov account. And if you're unable to locate your VAD in your account, or if perhaps it does not align with what you agreed to do in your interview, please follow up directly with your VISTA supervisor. Next week, we will provide more details related to the indirect service of VISTA and your VAD. Please make sure you have your VAD by your first day of service.
All right, so this is a good chance for us to pause. We've talked about a little bit of what's to be completed before next week, and then what to expect on your first day of service. So we're going to pause here and see what questions we have that have come in. And again, remind you that you've got the Q&A panel, which appears just below the slides, that you can ask your question at this point. Later on, we'll open up the phone lines to take questions that way as well. All right, so I see we've had a couple of questions around VISTA gear and VISTA polo shirts and that sort of thing. And absolutely, when you start with VISTA, you will be able to order VISTA polo shirt and t-shirts, and we have some other gear available as well. Once you're sworn into service and we make sure that we've got all your paperwork and all that stuff in good order, you'll get an email with instructions for how to go online and how to order that VISTA gear. So nothing you need to do just yet, but you'll be getting that information probably in a couple weeks. All right, so we've got a couple of questions here relating to the VISTA assignment description, to the VAD. Andrea says, is the timeline flexible in terms of the time periods that are outlined in your VAD? Absolutely. So the VAD or the VISTA assignment that is available to you now, that's sort of the starting place, and that's what your VISTA supervisor and the VISTA project put together as their best idea for what your year of VISTA service will look like. And that, of course, can change because they didn't necessarily know who you were going to be and what skills you had and what experiences when they wrote that. So once you get started, you can sit down with your supervisor, take a look at your VAD, and see where it might make sense to make adjustments. Some of the things outlined might take longer because if you don't have any experience, or maybe will take less time if you come with a lot of experience there. Let's see, we've got at least one question here, a couple questions here about loan forbearance and loan forgiveness. We're going to cover those a little bit more in detail later on, and so we'll just hold on to those questions for now. Let's see, Toy has a question, can you stay in this program for up to 5 years? Well, you can serve as a VISTA member for up to a total of 5 full-year VISTA terms. You wouldn't necessarily be in the same position for all of that time, but you can reapply year after year and serve up to 5 full-year terms. Eric, are there other questions that stand out to you?
I do see one from Cheryl that was asking excuse me, about next week's webinar. Do we watch this webinar at the place we are serving? Yes. You'll report to your service site on Tuesday, November 13th for your first day of service, depending on what time your supervisor says you report. But at your service site, again at the same time, 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern, you will join this required webinar launching your VISTA service.
All right, so someone has a question about their living allowance and the amount of that. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes, as well as health coverage. Okay, so the benefits questions we're going to get to in just a minute.
And I also see quite a few questions about fingerprints. We'll be talking about those in a few minutes as well.
All right, so Brenda says, I thought the report date was on Monday. Well, Monday is the Veterans Day holiday. It's not celebrated everywhere, we realize, but it certainly is for us here in this program. So that's why your official start date is will be Tuesday, November 13th, the non-day. Nancy T has a great question. She says, is it okay to work on things that are not outlined in your VAD? Well, the answer to that depends. It depends on what they are and how closely related or how far away they are from the things that are outlined in VAD. So you'll want to have those conversations with your VISTA supervisor. If you've got ideas for things that you could be doing or that you could be working on, sit down with your supervisor, propose those ideas, and see how they fit into the bigger plan. Obviously, your sponsor has brought you on to accomplish some specific things, and if there are related tasks that you could do that would support that, then in most cases that's great. But if they need you to go in one direction and you're thinking about a different one, that might not work out. So best to have the conversation with your supervisor and work it out jointly. Let's see, Sahar asks, is our VISTA supervisor the same as our site supervisor? All right, so that's a great question, and you're paying attention clearly, Sahar, because it gets a little bit complicated at times. Some VISTA projects are at a small local organization. They've got one location, and the supervisor who's there supervises, one or more VISTAs there, and that's the simplest case. So there, the VISTA supervisor, the project manager, and the site supervisor, it's all the same person. But then we have other projects that are at big national organizations or maybe a statewide organization where they've got multiple sites around the state, around the region, around the country, and they have VISTAs at each one of those sites. So in those cases, there is one person or maybe a couple people who oversee the whole VISTA project. We call that the VISTA project director. And then at each location, they have what we call a site supervisor. So you're going to work most directly with your site supervisor. That's the person you'll go to day to day. That's where you'll ask, for a day off, or if you call in sick, that's the person you would call into. That's your site supervisor. You'll have a very close relationship there. Less frequently, you would hear from the overall VISTA project director for your VISTA project. So anyway, I hope that helps to clarify that question. All right, Eric, do you see other questions that we should pick up at this point?
I think we're okay to move on, but again, just a reminder, keep your questions coming, and our fabulous team here will continue to answer them in the Q&A as well as at the end of the presentation.
Right, so we've got another Q&A period coming up, so don't despair. All right, so a lot of you have been asking about benefits. It's a perfect segue for us to talk about your benefits and go a little bit deeper and hopefully help clarify some of the information that you read on the campus. So as a VISTA member, you're probably aware there are a lot of benefits that are available to you during your year of service. And as you've already seen, this page of the VISTA campus, you can see the screen capture of it there. That's the page that has an overview of all the benefits that are available. Now, some of these benefits, like the living allowance, they are available to all VISTA members. But some other benefits may be useful only for some of you, like the child care assistance. It's your responsibility to look at the details and understand the action steps that are required to take advantage of your benefits. If you have questions about any of them, you might want to make a note now to review the benefits section on the campus after this webinar. But right now, we're going to provide you some details about the benefits that seem to generate the most questions from VISTA members.
And we'll start with talking about the living allowance, since most people generally like to get paid. Information on the VISTA living allowance is available from the benefits page of the VISTA campus. If you click on the Resources tab, you can access resources, find out more information about your living allowance, and learn how to live on the living allowance. You will also find a living allowance calendar and access to the living allowance rates. If you're not sure what the amount of your living allowance is, this is the place to go. You can also ask your VISTA supervisor, the CNCS State Office, or the National Service Hotline in that order. You're probably interested to know when you are scheduled to receive your first living allowance payment. So I'll ask this quick question. Does anyone know when you'll get your first living allowance payment? If so, please type your answer in the chat. We'll leave a minute and see what people think their first living allowance payment is. A couple of people saying November 30th. Some people unsure and laughing. 5 weeks, 3 weeks. Okay. So it looks like there's a wide variety, but generally it looks like people are coming in around the right track. Well, the answer is November 30th. Your first living allowance payment is scheduled to be on November 30th, 2018. Keep in mind you are paid every 2 weeks on Fridays, While this information applies to the majority of you, some of you may be paid directly by your VISTA sponsor. Make sure you double check with your VISTA sponsor or supervisor if you are paid directly by them or not. Federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. You must determine your own level of responsibility for state taxes. So, I suggest you check in with your state tax authority for more details. Remember that you can access your living allowance statement in your my.americorps.gov account, but this is not applicable if you are paid directly by your VISTA sponsor. Please note, your VISTA living allowance does not qualify you to receive unemployment compensation after your year of service is over. You are not an employee of the federal government nor of your project site, so no unemployment insurance is provided. In order to ensure that you receive your living allowance, it is crucial to complete the direct deposit information correctly. If the routing number and account number you entered for direct deposit are not correct, you will not receive your first living allowance payment as scheduled, and you'll have to wait at least 2 more weeks until the next pay period to be paid. So it's very important to make sure it's correct. You can find the routing number and account number on your checks if you have them, or you can go to your online banking site and look at an account statement. You may also want to call your bank just to be sure you have the correct information. We do recommend you double and triple check the numbers are accurate in your my.americorps.gov account so you get paid on time.
All right, so while we're talking about living allowance and income, let's take a second to talk about what's called public assistance protection. So public assistance, those are public benefits that may be tied to your income level or the amount of money that you're receiving. So if you're already receiving public assistance, such as TANF, which is Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, or LIHEAP, the Low-Income Household Energy Assistance Program, if you're already receiving these kinds of public assistance, then your VISTA living allowance and other payments that you get from VISTA program should not affect the level of assistance that you're getting. Likewise, if you apply for new public assistance benefits, again, your living allowance should not be counted or factored in when determining the level of benefits you receive. There's one exception to this, and that exception is SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now, or at any time during your year of VISTA service, your VISTA living allowance will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility and the benefit level that you'll receive. Now, if you are receiving SNAP prior to enrolling in the VISTA program, then again your benefit should remain unchanged. But if you apply for SNAP now, your living allowance will be factored in. I'll also mention here that public benefits are managed by state and local entities, and that we here in the VISTA program and the Corporation for National and Community Service, we're not involved in how these programs are administered. So if you have questions, you're going to need to speak with a caseworker to find out the details about the program that you're particularly interested in. Now, in about 2 weeks, you're going to be able to access, view, and print what we call your service letters. And you can find those on your homepage in My AmeriCorps. When applying for public assistance, you'll be able to print one of these letters that cites the authority for what's called income disregard. So you'll go into your account, and on the left menu, you'll see My Service Letter. That's where you can go in and print one of these letters that explains the income disregard benefit.
After successfully completing your year of service, you are eligible for one of 2 benefits, the AmeriCorps Education Award or the cash stipend. A few brief notes about them. The Education Award can be used to pay federal student loans or to pay for education at any Title IV institution, which is an institution that accepts federal funds. You do have 7 years to use it, and you cannot transfer it to anyone else. If you select the cash stipend is paid out via direct deposit at the very end of your service. The most important detail to know is that if you are unsure which benefit to choose, I suggest you select the Education Award because it gives you until the end of the 10th month of service to switch to the cash stipend. You are not able to switch from the cash stipend to the Education Award. So, when you chose the cash stipend, it is a final decision. But if you select the Education Award, you do have some flexibility, again, until the end of your 10th month of service. More specific details regarding Education Award eligibility, institutions that match the Education Award, and other things to know can be found on vistacampus.gov as well as on nationalservice.gov. For anyone who has student loans, like me, unfortunately, there are ways you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your year of service. If you chose the Education Award, you can request forbearance for your federally backed student loans, and that simply means that you do not make monthly loan payments during your year of service, and you can request that the National Service Trust pays the accrued interest on your federal loan after you complete your year. Just be aware that the interest payment is considered taxable income. Federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, and you must initiate the process by submitting a loan forbearance request in your MyAmeriCorps account. You will be able to do this approximately 1 week into your service using the My Education Award link, which will appear in your account. If you selected the end of service cash stipend, or if you have private student loans, you may choose to request loan deferment, which means that you apply directly with your lender, giving the reason of economic hardship. You may be able to have your accrued interest paid by the Department of Education if you have federally subsidized loans that are deferred. And you may be able to have a portion of your Perkins loans forgiven. Loan deferment is not guaranteed and may or may not be offered by all lenders, so you should check with your specific lender to find out what they offer. Just remember that neither of these will happen automatically. You must request them through the appropriate process. For more details on everything that we just covered, you definitely should go to the Education Award tutorial, which is at nationalservice.gov/resources/edaward. After you have officially started service, you can go to your MyAmeriCorps account to submit your loan forbearance request with CNCS. Remember that it is your responsibility to submit the forbearance request and check on its status. At the end of your year, it is also your responsibility to submit any Education Award payment requests, as well as any interest accrual payment requests.
All right, so that's a lot of information about loans and Education Award forbearance. Let's shift gears now and talk about health care, big topic these days. So as you probably know, the Affordable Care Act requires that everyone, including you as VISTA members, to have insurance coverage unless you're exempt from the law. So the start of your VISTA service qualifies you for what's called a special enrollment period of 60 days. That is 60 days from the start of your VISTA service. And depending on your circumstance, you may need or want to take advantage of that special enrollment period on healthcare.gov. The VISTA program offers 2 different health benefit options. And the option that you qualify for is based on whether you have insurance or whether you're exempt from the requirement to have health coverage. So first of all, let's talk about if you have health insurance, because this is probably the case for most of you. If you have insurance, whether it's your own plan, whether you're covered by a spouse or your parents' plan, maybe you went to healthcare.gov and signed up for your own. So if you've got coverage, and this also includes Medicare, Medicaid, veterans, TRICARE type coverage, if you've got that kind of health coverage, then you're eligible to enroll in a plan that we call the VISTA Healthcare Allowance. And this program, this allowance, provides reimbursement for up to $7,350 of qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. So you can use this allowance for things like co-payments for an office visit, for medical services at a clinic or a hospital, or a co-payment for your prescriptions. You can also use it to get reimbursed for medications that you have to purchase and certain medical supplies, and it also can be used to help meet your annual deductible. All of those things are considered out-of-pocket expenses. Now the thing is, the allowance will not reimburse you for the cost of buying the health insurance in the first place or for paying the monthly premiums. So that's the case if you've got insurance, then you're eligible for the health care allowance. The other situation is that if you're exempt from the requirements of the ACA and you're not legally required to have insurance, then you're eligible to enroll in what's called the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. This health benefit plan is a safety net plan that covers basic health care needs. It operates like insurance. It has very low out-of-pocket expenses, and it covers things like doctor's visits and prescriptions and lab tests and x-rays and that kind of stuff. But it's not comprehensive, so there are some limitations with that plan. Both of these benefits are administered by a company called IMG, the International Medical Group. And the thing to know is that you won't automatically get either one of these health benefits. You have to enroll. It's not automatic. So in about 2 weeks, you're going to get an email from IMG, and that email will provide you with instructions on how to enroll. You won't be able to do it just yet, so even if you're eager, you'll just have to be patient, because once you're activated into VISTA service after next week when you officially begin, that's the point at which IMG can send you notice about this, and they'll give you the instructions for how to enroll.
There are also other benefits available to VISTA members, and, as we previously mentioned, some benefits may only be available to some of you. These include things such as relocation and child care. For those of you who relocated or are relocating more than 50 miles from your home of record to your service site, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and a one-time settling-in allowance. If you are eligible for financial travel support, you should have already received communication from the VISTA Member Support Unit via email. If you relocated more than 50 miles to your service site and have not yet received an email confirmation, you can inquire about your eligibility status by emailing vmsu@cns.gov. Also, AmeriCorps VISTA offers a child care benefit to members who qualify. To qualify, you must meet specific eligibility requirements, such as household income limits, and you must be the parent or legal guardian of a child under the age of 13 residing with you. For more information and to apply, visit AmeriCorpsChildCare.com.
All right, so let's talk about your leave benefits. As a VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits that are available during your year of service. You have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave that are available to you. But make sure to read the VISTA Member Handbook regarding when you actually are able to use your leave. Some people think they can take off their first day, and it doesn't work like that. So read the details. Additionally, you'll be able to observe national holidays that are recognized at your service site. So, for example, if at your site Labor Day is a day off, then you as a VISTA member would have that day off. However, if your site does not celebrate or recognize a particular federal holiday, then you don't get that day off either. So say, for example, your site does not give its staff off on Veterans Day, then, but you won't be starting then, so you'll be able to miss this if that's the case. But if, say, Veterans Day fell within your service year, and everybody at your site works on Veterans Day, then you would be serving on Veterans Day unless you get approved to take your personal leave on that day. Also, you don't get excused leave if your site is closed for several days or for an extended period of time. So for example, we know some schools will close between like Christmas and New Year's. You don't automatically get that time off. You would need to work with your supervisor to figure out a way that you can serve during that time, or if you wanted to be off, you could use your personal leave. It's up to you and your supervisor to work out the details of your leave and taking time off. Your supervisor will monitor your time and attendance, and so if you've got any requests for leave, you send those to your supervisor. All right, so we've just covered a lot of information. As you've heard, as a VISTA member, you have access to a lot of benefits during your year, and we hope that now you've got a little bit better idea about how to find out more about those benefits and then what action steps you need to take in order to make use of them. So we're going to shift gears away from benefits, and now we're going to review some of the key terms and conditions, some of the rules of VISTA service. Now, we know that many of you have already completed the VISTA Terms and Conditions course online, but we want to make sure that everyone is clear on the conditions. So we're going to do a quick interactive activity to review some of the main conditions of VISTA service. Here's how it works. I'm going to read out a service activity, and then using a tool here, which I'll tell you about in just a second, you're going to indicate whether you think the answer is yes or no. Yes, the activity is permitted, or no, that activity is not permitted. So we're going to use what's called an annotation tool, and you can see it illustrated there on the left side of your screen. So in order to use it, first of all, when that menu actually pops up within Adobe, you'll select the square icon in the drawing tool pane that's on the left side of the screen. And when you hover over that square, you'll see a menu will open up, the annotation toolbar. Then we ask you to select the check mark or the X. And then you can, once you've selected it, then you can click on the slide to indicate which response is yours. So you'll see in the next one that there is an area for yes and an area for no, and that's where you would indicate your answer. Now, if you've joined this webinar on a cell phone or tablet, that annotation function will not work, so you can just put your answer, yes or no, into the chat. All right, so let's get started with the first question. Eric?
Great. First statement is, I can voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. So we'll give you a chance now to post your responses.
All right, it looks like our screen has changed for just a second here. So let's see if it's coming back there. It should take a second to reload with the annotation tool available.
And I see while it's loading, thank you, all of you are posting in the chat your responses. So it looks like the majority of people are saying no, a few yes, a couple of unsures, but it looks like most people are saying the answer to this first question is no. And as we continue to get our screen back up and running, we will go to the answer. The answer is yes. You can have VISTA listed on your social media profile and voice your political opinion. However, You cannot represent yourself as a spokesperson for AmeriCorps, the VISTA program, CNCS, or your sponsor. Additionally, you can voice political opinions on your own time, but not while serving at your site, nor using any of the equipment at your site, including their Wi-Fi network. Also, you should not put the CNCS or AmeriCorps VISTA logo as your profile picture when voicing political or other sensitive opinions on social media. When in doubt, keep your VISTA service and political activity completely separate. Always refer to the Hatch Act, that's H-A-T-C-H, the Hatch Act, for more detailed information.
All right, so let's see if you're ready for the next one. Yes or no, I can demonstrate in a political rally. So we've got the annotation tool back. Yep, and I see some of you've got your check mark going. If you've got the box thing, you might want to click the little triangle next to the box, and you'll see that menu. And then instead of having a rectangle, you could have something nifty like a star or an X or a check mark. All right, so the preponderance of responses both in the chat and on screen are yes. So thank you all for weighing in. Wow, that's incredible. So let's take a look at the answer as you all got it. Yes, you can, but of course there are a few parameters, a few conditions around it. Yes, you can demonstrate at a political rally as long as you are not identified as a VISTA member or perceived to be a VISTA. So it's this perceived to be a VISTA part that's important because you may be serving in a small town or a local area. Maybe you relocated there and it's clear to people who lived there a long time that you're the new person in town. So even when you're not necessarily wearing a VISTA polo shirt or any branded gear, people in town are going to know that you're a VISTA member. So if that's a situation, it's going to be hard for you not to be perceived as a VISTA. So you'll need to be careful in trying to keep your political participation separate from your VISTA identity. And when in doubt about any specific activity, it's best to avoid it until you're sure. And you can consult with your supervisor at your site and also with the state office to get some clarity or approval for that kind of political activity.
So let's see if everyone knows the answer to this statement. I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I am not identified as a VISTA member. Right now it's coming in about half and half. A couple more yeses. A really big star. That's because you as a VISTA are going to be a star. Awesome. Oh, okay. So it looks like it's about 50-50. And we'll go ahead and move to the answer and show you that no, you cannot raise money on behalf of a partisan political candidate at any time during your VISTA year. It does not matter if it's off-duty or at home or while not identified as a VISTA. The Hatch Act prohibits all fundraising for partisan political candidates. You can, however, raise funds in support of an issue on your own time and not identified as a VISTA member.
All right, so next up, yes or no, I can have outside employment or earn additional income while serving as a VISTA member. We've got a lot of fast responses in the chat. People saying yes, 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 yes. I don't see anything on screen, so maybe the annotation tool is not active. Let me see. You've got to grab it each time. It looks like it should work. All right. Well, sorry about that. Not sure what's up with that annotation tool, but sounds like everyone, it's unanimous. Yes, yes, yep, yep. Got it. Okay. So we can move on to the next slide, which shows that, in fact, yes. A few conditions, of course. Yes, you are allowed to have outside part-time employment, but there are a few key policy things to keep in mind. First of all, that employment must not conflict with your VISTA service or your service hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or VISTA program requirements or policies. So it's got to be legal, right? You cannot be employed by your VISTA sponsor, nor can you be a contractor of the sponsor or the project to which you are assigned to serve. Next, your VISTA supervisor has to approve and has to agree that the outside work will not interfere with your service on the VISTA project. And if later on you find out that the work does interfere, then you may be asked to either end your outside employment or end your VISTA service. So hopefully it won't get to that, but definitely stay in contact with your supervisors so that everyone's aware of what's going on. Let's see, as I mentioned, it has to be part-time. Only part-time employment is allowed while serving as a VISTA member. And, you know, we're a government program, so of course there's a form. So if you are already working and you can plan to continue working, or if you want to seek outside employment, we ask that you complete the outside employment request form. You can find that on the VISTA campus, and then submit that to your VISTA supervisor. We have more information about the policy on the URL that you see listed there. And I should have mentioned earlier, and I apologize that I didn't, all of the links that we're showing you here, there in the handout. And you can see the handouts to download just to the right of the slides under the chat. You can click that and download it there. It's got all of those helpful links.
Great. We've provided you with a lot of information today, but before we move on to questions, let's recap what you need to complete by tomorrow, Wednesday, so we can verify the information prior to your first day of service, which again is next Tuesday, November 13th. Within your my.americorps.gov account, you will complete your direct deposit form, federal tax withholding, unpaid compensation information, and your end of service benefit selection where you choose the education award or the cash stipend. Within the vistacampus.gov website, you will need to complete the following courses listed on the screen. The most urgent of these are the VISTA Terms and Conditions and the Civil Rights and Responsibilities. You cannot start service without having accepted the terms of VISTA service.
All right, so now it's time again to get to your questions. So, you know, whether it's what you need to do before you get started next week or on your first day of service or any of the benefits or the terms or conditions that we've talked about. Again, we've got the Q&A panel below the slides that's available. You can submit your question there. And now we're also going to be able to take questions over the phone. So I'm going to ask our operator to come back and give instructions for those of you who dialed in to the toll-free number.
If you would like to ask a question over the phone lines, please press star 1 from your phone and unmute your line, speaking your name clearly when prompted to be placed into the queue. If you would like to withdraw your question, please press star 2. Again, if you would like to ask a question over the phone lines, please press star 1. One moment as we wait for any questions.
All right, and while we're waiting there, we've got plenty of questions that already come into the Q&A, so we'll get started there, and then we'll come back to the phones in just a moment or two. So let's see, I saw some questions came in earlier around healthcare, and so assuming that we didn't get those answered before, let's see, so Claudia asked about dental, and yes, we do have both dental and vision provisions in both of our benefits. They're limited, but good. So, you know, whether it's the healthcare allowance or the health benefit plan, you can get an eye exam and a complete pair of glasses or a set of contact lenses at one time during your service year, so it's a once-a-year kind of thing. Likewise for dental benefits, and there's a maximum amount. I think it's $200 or something towards those eyeglasses. So you have to back away from the designer frames. And likewise for dental benefits, You can get an annual exam, a cleaning, x-rays, that kind of preventive care. And then 2, if you've got like a cavity and routine kinds of services, those are covered as well. To get more details, go to the benefits page and click through, and you'll see there's a handbook that explains the benefits for both of the plans if you when you go to the IMG site. Someone else asked a question about what if I've got insurance now? I'm covered under my parents, but I'm going to turn 26 during this year of VISTA service, and I won't be on that plan anymore. What happens? So at that point, that's what's called a qualifying life event, a QLE, qualifying life event, and that means that at the time you go off your parents' insurance, you are eligible to sign up for new coverage through healthcare.gov. So at that time, you would go to healthcare.gov, complete a profile, put in your information, see what kinds of plans you're eligible for, and then you would pick a plan that suits your needs and go ahead and sign up for it. Once you've got that, then you would notify IMG and let them know, hey, I'm no longer on my parents' plan, I'm on a new plan, and provide them with that information. So let's see, Eric, are there any questions that stand out for you?
There was one question earlier, and I meant to mention it. There was a question about the VISTA assignment description, or the VAD, and if the VAD is, it was a two-part question. One was if the VAD is editable, and the second part was if the VAD looks too short or is confusing, how do I go about working around that? So the easy answer to that is your supervisor is typically the person who wrote your VISTA assignment description. So if you have any questions about your VAD, it does sometimes change slightly throughout your year of service, but it shouldn't change drastically. But definitely email your supervisor this week, or if you want to set up a meeting with them when you get to your site, your VISTA supervisor is the first and best point of contact to answer any questions related to your VISTA assignment description.
All right, great. We're going to continue taking questions, but also I'm going to let you know we have a poll, a little evaluation about this webinar. We're going to open it up. You'll see it on your screen in just a moment. And while those questions are up, you'll still have the ability to access the Q&A, but it's a much smaller panel on the right side, towards the right side of your screen. And so we do ask you, ask for your opinion. So if you would take a moment to answer 12 quick little questions there, and you can then get back to the Q&A piece. So let me go to the phones and see if we have anybody in queue on the phone lines. Operator?
We do have a few questions in queue. Our first question comes from Carmela. Your line is now open.
Hi, Carmela.
Hi, I had a question. So I'm going to a site where I'm doing some food justice work, which is really exciting. But an issue that kind of came up was I had booked a flight out of the country for a food conference, and it was the week that I was supposed to start the training. And I think that they have other VISTAs at their training, so they can't be flexible with the training day. But is there any kind of compensation or anything that AmeriCorps VISTA does? Because I know they do things for like moving or anything like that. Is there anything they offer under a circumstance like that, where it was months from the time that I would have applied in October?
You know, that's a great question, and gosh, what are the chances that both things would happen the same week? Unfortunately, we don't really have like a fund or a benefit to cover that kind of thing, where you had originally some other plans and now they've changed and you're holding a ticket. The best thing you might try doing is contacting the airline to see if there's a way, that you can use that ticket at another time. And maybe the conference organizers, if there was a registration fee that they would be willing to make a refund. But Because we weren't really involved in making those plans, I don't really think that there's any way that we can then, work to help undo them, as it were.
Right. And then there's the move-in. It helps with like the relocation. So if I was previously homeless, there's not like a mileage type of thing. Like I just would drive and work like normal, and I just didn't have a home address. But I recently moved to a place by the place I'm now serving. And does that qualify for any kind of not moving expenses, but just the one listed there?
Sure. So I don't want to have to get into all the details of your personal situation there. My recommendation, contact the VISTA Member Support Unit. And if you have a pen, you can call them at 800-942-2677. And that is listed on the contact sheet, which is one of the downloadable handouts. But the VISTA Member Support Unit, they can help you with relocation benefits.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Jasmine. Your line is now open.
Hello.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi. So I recently, as of the day before yesterday, I think I received a VISTA orientation outline from my site, and I prepared for this day, for November 13th, since I had originally applied. However, there are some additional days on here, specifically November 16th to the 17th. I'm currently in grad school. It's an online program, but I am required to attend on campus a few weekends a year. Those days are outlined 2 years in advance. So I already have those days, so going forward I can just request those days off. But for this coming week, for the first week of service, I know for sure that I will not be able to attend Friday, November 16th, and the Saturday after. Is that something that, because I can't miss those weekends, I was grad school, I miss those weekends, so is that something I should just talk with my site supervisor about?
Yep, absolutely. Talk with your site supervisor about, and you'll need to do a couple things. One is figure out the training that you're going to miss on that day and how you can make it up at your site. And then the other is around leave, because typically we don't let VISTAs use leave first week of service. So you won't really be able to take a personal day that day. So you're going to have to figure out with your supervisor a way that you can maybe make up those hours within that pay period. So usually supervisors are very flexible about that, but it's really up to them how you work out the details.
Okay, and I did have another question, but I can't remember right now, so I'll just
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jasmine.
And our next question will come from Julia Fox. Your line is open.
Hi, Julia.
Hi. I was just wondering, are there going to be any opportunities to meet other VISTA members in our area during our term of service?
Julia, this is Eric, and that's a great question because we know that as a VISTA member, it's really important to meet others. So there's a couple of ways that something like that can happen, and we encourage it to happen. One way is the quickest and easiest way on the VISTA Campus website, vistacampus.gov. If you go to the Connect and Learn tab, there's a campus map, and so you can click on it and see other VISTA members who are near you or close to you and send them a message on the VISTA campus. Another way is if you are in especially a bigger or smaller area, you can reach out to your local CNCS state office. And again, that's that two-letter state abbreviation. So if it's Texas, it's tx@cns.gov. And sometimes those states may be able to put you in touch with either other VISTAs that are serving on similar projects or ones that are closest to you in proximity. And then the third thing I'll quickly mention is you can also check with your VISTA supervisor. Occasionally, some VISTA supervisors will be in touch with other organizations nearby that have VISTAs, and they may put together a regional training or some kind of a get-together. But I would definitely take a look at those in that order: the VISTA campus, your CNCS state office, and your supervisor for potential opportunities to get together as we move forward and encourage the networking of VISTA members.
All right, thank you.
The next question comes from April Foster. Your line is open.
Hi, I've served as an AmeriCorps state member for 4 terms, and I wanted to know, am I eligible for the Education Award this time around?
So great question, and actually I saw this question or a variation of it come up earlier. So there are a couple different limitations. Each AmeriCorps program, AmeriCorps State National, AmeriCorps MCCC, and AmeriCorps VISTA, each one has its own limit of the number of terms that you can serve. So VISTA, the terms that you served in the state national programs don't count towards the number of terms you can serve in AmeriCorps VISTA. Now, apart from that, the Education Award has its own limit, and each individual has a lifetime limit of 2 full education awards, or the equivalent thereof. So if you earn a half-time award here and you earn another half-time award there, that together is 1 full-time ed award. So then you could earn another education award. But the maximum per person lifetime limit is 2 education awards. So I'm guessing in those 4 years as an AmeriCorps state member, you probably earned 2 full-time education awards. Is that right?
Yes, that is true.
Yep. So your option now as a VISTA member, there actually are 2 options. One is you could request a $0 education award. You won't get any money at the end of the year towards college, but it would allow you to put your loans into National Service Forbearance, and at the end of the year, you could have us pay off the interest. I'm sure you're probably familiar with how that works. So you'd have to weigh out, does the amount of interest that would get paid off, does that outweigh the $1,800 that you would get by picking the cash award at the end of your service year?
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh,
yes,
you're welcome.
It does.
Great.
Thank you.
The next question comes from Shayla David. Your line is open.
Hi, Sheila.
Hello? Hi, it's Trishayla.
Oh, Trishayla. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's fine. My question was, okay, I kind of got a little bit confused because I talked to a lady that I've been working with. Her name is Jessica. I think she's with the business. So I was asking her about my timesheet to start, and she told me that I will meet with her on Tuesday the 13th for orientation. Then I would start, at the site the next day. So, would the 13th still count as my day going with her?
It will, yeah, because it sounds like, again, maybe she's a project director for a bigger project.
Yeah.
And maybe all the VISTAs are going to come there and you'll meet up with them. And then on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, each of you will go off to your individual sites. And then you'll
right, okay.
But Tuesday definitely counts. Yep, you'll be sworn in. Tuesday is your first official day as a VISTA. Your benefits will kick in and you'll get paid for that day.
Oh, okay. So
Tuesday
will be my first day of business service, but not my first day going to my actual work site, right?
Right. It sounds like they've got a day of orientation somewhere else. Yeah, but that's fine.
Right. Okay. I was just making sure that I had that right information. So that's what I just emailed her anyway to see what time I need to come in on Tuesday to meet with her anyway, so I have to get my time sheet.
Yeah.
It's one more question. Do you get paid the same amount every 2 weeks or not?
You will. You will. Now your first paycheck will be a little bit smaller because you're starting on Tuesday.
Right.
So,
yeah, so I'm going to like 1 day off, really.
Well, technically you're going to be 2 days off because we pay 365 days out of the year. So you get paid for Saturday and Sunday even though you're not like showing up at the office on weekends. But each pay period is 14 days long from Sunday of the first week to Saturday of the second week. So for your first paycheck, Sunday and Monday won't be in there. So it's only going to be for 12 days. And then after that, it'll be the full check each time. It'll be the same each week, every 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Because I think the people, well, I'm working at a for the opiate prevention program, and they only work Monday through Friday at a certain time. So it's like, so I still will get the whole, like,
you will.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, we just take what the annual amount is for a VISTA member, and we divide it by 365, and then that's how we figure out a daily rate. And then every 2 weeks you get 14 times the daily rate.
Okay. I think that's all I really had. I was just making sure that, like, I would go directly to my work site on Wednesday because I'm going to get back in touch with them because they haven't got back in touch with me. I've just been trying to keep my basics with them. So I'm going to email them and tell them, figure out my work schedule for them to start on next Wednesday, like my direct time and stuff. Okay. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you for your questions.
So one more thing. So next Tuesday, I can call this number again and do the same thing?
Well, so next Tuesday, and that's a great question. So for everyone, next Tuesday, the webinar is going to have a new link and a new phone number.
Okay.
So you'll get another email with the details. Yeah. So each one of these is a separate event. Yep. But the process will be very much the same. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Always have my email, so I'll get it.
Great.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Evie Mildrow. Your line is open.
Hi, my name is Phoebe with a PH.
Hi, Stevie.
Oh, Phoebe with a B, sorry.
Go ahead, Phoebe.
You're fine. My question. I'm 24 and I just got my mom decided to do a different kind of, and this is back to healthcare and the benefits and things. I was taken off of her plan in October, and I haven't had anything since, and I'm planning on enrolling in Medicaid as soon as I get on site. I was just wondering if the $7,000 or whatever that is in cash, if I know that I need to enroll in that, but will anything, me not being enrolled in Medicaid right this second, will that be an issue?
It's a great question, and so let me give a little bit more detail, and it may help others as well. So you're in a situation where, are you going to be relocating, moving?
Yes, I'm relocating to Colorado. So.
Okay, so you're moving to a new state, so you're going to have to get established with new health care, right? So it probably applies to a lot of people here. A lot of this is relocate. So so we know that sometimes there can be a little bit of a lag time in getting enrolled in a new plan. So that's why we make it possible for you, starting right after you start with VISTA, to sign up for our health benefit plan for up to 60 days. So that way, if you're going to apply for Medicaid, and it takes a different amount of time in different places. Some places it's very quick. Other places it can take weeks or even more than a month. That way you're not going without any coverage. We can put you on our health benefit plan. Again, you would sign up with IMG. You'll get an email from them usually within a week after your start date, and you can just contact them either by phone or by email or even online chat and say, hey, I'm new. I'm signing up for this other coverage, but until it goes into effect, can I get the health benefit plan? And they will help you work through that.
Okay, and then if that does happen, I would be able to unenroll in it, or would I just stay?
Yeah. So then when your other coverage gets into effect, then you just contact them and say, hey, here's my plan. I'm going to have this the rest of the year. And you'll provide them with the details, and they'll switch it then for you.
Okay, awesome. That's perfect. That's all I needed.
All right, great. Thanks. Good question.
Thank you.
And as a reminder, to ask a question by phone, please press *1 and record your name when prompted. Our next question comes from Crystal Nash. Your line is open.
Hi, Crystal.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I have actually two questions because I was waiting for a while and I heard some other people. But my first question had to do with the slide deck that you all are presenting.
Mm-hmm.
I had some technical difficulties, so I wasn't able to get into this Adobe Connect thing, even though I tested it the day before.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But no, not your fault, probably. But is the slide deck available some other place?
Yeah, so, well, you can't see it at the moment, but I'm going to send out a follow-up email probably tomorrow, and I'll have a link to that, to the slides, and we've got a recording of this that we're going to post as well. The recording takes a little bit longer to process, but we'll send that out to everybody so that you can.
Okay, sounds wonderful. So that's my first question. My second question, I'm going to be working in Silicon Valley, and I'm wondering when I look at my VAD, like I think it's called the Volunteer Assignment Description,
yeah.
It asks for the stars, the moon, and the universe. If I'm looking at that, and I think I'm awesome, but I'm not a superhero. So what do I do with that? Like.
Yeah. So that's a great conversation. Yeah, it's a great conversation to have with your VISTA supervisor in your first week. So you'll be sitting down with them in your orientation to talk about why you're there and what problem you're there to help solve and what specifically is part of your assignment. And then I think you can at that point unpack your assignment description with your supervisor and talk about those expectations and try to get a sense of what's realistic. And it may result in an adjustment to that assignment description so that on paper it reflects what you're actually going to do. And sometimes it's just, hey, we need a little bit more information, and that will help you feel comfortable that, in fact, you will be able to accomplish it.
Yeah, I almost feel like it was a wish list. Like it was like a Christmas tree wish list type situation. But okay, that sounds fine. So that was the only two questions that I had. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
And before we continue with questions, I wanted to make an announcement. I know some people are still working on the surveys. We'll give you 2 more minutes to finish them up. I know it's quite a few questions, but once we do finish, we have a couple more slides to show you. So if you are still working on the survey, and as Andy mentioned, we truly value your input and your feedback, so please take the next 2 minutes to finish your surveys and provide us the feedback so we can better enhance these webinars for the future and for time to come. And then I'll quickly also mention I saw quite a few questions in the chat about forms and coursework. Just due to the large number of people starting service at one time, it's easier for our staff to only communicate to those people who are missing any online forms or coursework. So you do not get an email to confirm it's complete. But if you are missing anything, by this Thursday or no later than by this Friday, you would receive an email letting you know if you're missing any items before you start service on Monday. And I'll turn it back over to Andy for more questions and answers.
All right, great. Thank you, Eric. So we've got plenty of other questions here in the Q&A, so we'll pause for a second on the phone and see what else we can cover by way of what's come in here. So let's see. We've got some questions again about time and leave. I don't want to belabor that, but your supervisor is the one that you would talk with about time off, particularly if the site is going to be closed over the holidays or other time periods. Work out with your VISTA supervisor how you handle that time away. You could be serving at another site, maybe at a partner organization. You could be doing research or other types of service at a different location. Here's a question related to living allowance pay. Michelle says, what happens if you don't have direct deposit because you don't yet have a bank account? If that's the case, you can waive direct deposit. That means you can decline it. We don't recommend that because it takes longer for you to get paid because we have to actually print and mail a check, and the check will go to your VISTA service site. It won't go to your home address. It will go to where you're serving. So you're going to want to make sure that the people who staff the mailroom know who you are, because if you're new and they don't know you, they might see this thing and think, oh, this is at the wrong place, and send it back. We've had that happen. But we do encourage everybody to use direct deposit. And so if you say you're relocating, once you get your new bank account set up, you can go in at any time and update your direct deposit information in My AmeriCorps. Just be aware, and on the campus is a living allowance calendar. Just be aware that if you make a change the week that you're going to get paid, that change won't go into effect until the next paycheck. So you've got to do it a little bit in advance. Otherwise, we'll pull the information from your account. It'll have the old direct deposit. But a couple of you had questions about updating that. Let's see. So Andrew had a question about the Education Award, and he says, does it last 7 years from now or from when I finish my service term? And it's 7 years from when you earn the Education Award. So that will be in 2019. Then you've got 7 years to use that Education Award. All right, so let's go back to the phones and see what other questions we've got lined up there.
Thank you. Our next question from the phone lines will come from Latara Keelan. Your line is open.
Hi, Latara.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Andy. Okay, so I have a question about the relocation,
Sure.
Relocating. I guess for me, I know we're signed up for a year, and I actually was interested in like two positions with you all. And so with the relocation, I guess, allowance, how does that work with, I mean, like, is it just going towards the site that that I'll be working at, or, can I use that as, use that to relocate in a different state? And how because I've heard someone else say that they're relocating, and I'm like, okay, I was expressing to I'm sorry, I didn't want to say her name, but I was expressing to her the lady that I met that actually did my interview and everything, and that I was inquired about moving. And so she was like, okay, well, you can't just, if you're going closer to the site, then that's fine, but if you're moving in a different state, no. So how does that work? I mean, I don't...
Sure. So let me just briefly cover how our relocation benefits work. So when you applied to your AmeriCorps VISTA position in the My AmeriCorps account, you had listed your home of record, your permanent address, right? And so if the place where you end up choosing to serve is 50 miles or more from your home of record, then you're qualified for relocation assistance. And we have two parts to our assistance. One part is mileage-based, and so if you're moving 50 miles or more, for every mile you get 34 cents. And the other part is called the settling in allowance. It's a flat fee, $550. intended to cover things like a security deposit or, paying for utilities when you get to your new location.
Okay. So, that means that, because, okay, so it's pretty much 50 miles from my site where I'll be at. Okay. And I also had a question about, because I was interested in another program with AmeriCorps. And I'm like, okay, if I'm with VISTA, they told me that I wouldn't be able to take on that particular job, even though, we can take on a second job. I wouldn't be able to do both programs, like,
Right. You can only be enrolled in one AmeriCorps program at a time.
Right. So that's what they told me. So the thing about it is that with this one, I was thinking about with the relocating. I don't know how, how would that work or feel like it. If I know we start on the 13th, but the other thing starts in January. And I'm like, if the relocation doesn't, kind of, how would I be able to go about that? I don't know, because I was in the loops with both the positions.
It sounds like you've got a more complicated situation than many. So what I would suggest is that you contact the VISTA member support unit to ask them in detail about your relocation benefits to see, what's available, and then you can decide what makes the most sense for you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. And I see we're getting to the end of our time. A couple of questions that have come up in the Q&A that I'm going to cover very quickly. Someone said, hey, do we have to work on weekends? Well, I mentioned that you get paid for 365 days, but your work week is set by your sponsor, and it's typically the same work week that everybody there at the organization works. So it's usually, 37 to 40 hours, Monday through Friday. But we know that because you're doing community work, things don't always happen in the 9 to 5 hours. So you might have community meetings in the evening or on a weekend. We're not expecting you to just give and give and give all those extra hours. You'll work with your supervisor to adjust. So say you work 3 extra hours one evening, you take 3 hours off another day. Or you have an event on a Saturday, then maybe you have another day off during the week. So you work out all those details with your supervisor. But I just didn't want any of you to think that you actually are working 365 days of the year. You're just getting paid for them. All right, so I know we didn't get to answer all your questions, and I apologize for that, but we've got another chance to see you next week. You can also connect with me by email. The VISTA Member Support Unit is a great resource for specific benefits-related questions. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. And I want to thank my partner on the webinar, Eric Powell, co-presenter, all of our webinar Q&A and technical support from Khadijah Carr, Chris Hawks, and Kaylee Ramovich, and also our technical support from our production team, Kim Adams and Aaron Galogli at LSI. Thank you all, and we'll see you all next week.
That does conclude today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.